Somewhere in the attic of your family's history, there's a story no one likes to tell. A photograph of relatives standing in front of a house they would soon lose. A savings account that evaporated overnight. A generation that learned to hoard bread, mistrust banks, and never throw anything away. Between 1929 and 1933, 9,000 American banks failed. 1 in 4 workers lost their jobs. Entire families, middle-class, hard-working, respectable, found themselves standing in breadlines, living in cardboard shacks, watching everything they had built collapse. This wasn't ancient history. It was your great-grandparents, maybe your grandparents. And the question no one asks is, did your family survive? And what did survival cost them? Welcome to the financial system. Control the money, control the history. And remember, simple is never easy. To understand how families survived the Depression, you first have to understand what destroyed them. And it wasn't the stock market crash. That was just the trigger. The real weapon was something deeper: debt disguised as prosperity. The 1920s were intoxicating. For the first time in American history, ordinary families could buy refrigerators, automobiles, and radios, not with savings, but with credit. Installment plans turned luxuries into monthly payments. Stock speculation became a national pastime fueled by borrowed money. A farmer in Kansas could put down 10% on shares she'd never seen in companies she couldn't name and wake up richer than her father had ever been. It felt like the rules of money had changed. They hadn't. The rules were just waiting. When the crash came in October 1929, it didn't just wipe out speculators. It wiped out the confidence that held the entire system together. And once confidence cracked, everything else followed. Banks had lent recklessly. They held only fractions of what depositors believed was safely stored. When panic spread and people lined up to withdraw, the banks didn't have the money. They collapsed, not by the dozens, but by the thousands. By 1933, nearly half of America's banks had failed. A lifetime of savings could vanish in a single afternoon. And this is where the family story begins. What determined whether your ancestors survived wasn't luck. It was how they were positioned before the collapse. Families who had borrowed to buy homes, farms, and automobiles found themselves crushed by debts that didn't shrink when income did. Prices fell, wages fell, but the mortgage stayed the same. A farm bought for $5,000 in 1927 might be worth $2,000 by 1932, but the bank still wanted its $5,000 back. Foreclosures swept the country. Families who had worked the same land for generations were pushed off by sheriffs executing court orders. In the cities, it was no different. Unemployment hit 25%. Factories closed. Men who had supported families for decades suddenly had nothing. Children watched their fathers weep. One survivor recalled finding his father behind their Massachusetts home, crying and broken. "My dad was the strongest man I knew," he said, "but the Depression brought him to his knees." Yet not everyone fell. Some families not only survived, they emerged stronger. And the difference wasn't wealth, it was structure. Farming families who owned their land outright, who hadn't borrowed against future harvests, who lived by what they grew rather than what they bought, these families weathered the storm. They didn't need money to eat. They had chickens, gardens, and cellars full of canned goods. When prices collapsed, they burned corn for fuel because it wasn't worth selling. But they didn't starve. They had detached themselves from the system that was collapsing around them. Families with skills fared better too. The carpenter who could repair anything, the seamstress who made clothes from scraps, the mechanic who kept old machines running. These people had value that didn't depend on dollars. In a world where money stopped working, the ability to produce became the only currency that mattered. But perhaps the most important survival factor was community. Families pooled resources. They moved in with relatives. They shared meals, childcare, and labor. Churches became lifelines. Neighbors traded what they had for what they needed. The Depression didn't just test individuals, it tested whether families could function as economic units rather than collections of separate consumers. The families that fractured were often the ones who had already drifted apart. The Depression accelerated what was already breaking. Marriage rates fell. Birth rates dropped. Some fathers simply disappeared, unable to face their failure. By 1932, the number of children placed in orphanages had increased by 50%, not because parents had died, but because they could no longer afford to feed their own children. And then there were the Hoovervilles. Named in bitter mockery of President Herbert Hoover, these shantytowns appeared on the edges of every American city. Families who had lost everything built shelters from cardboard, scrap wood, and tin. They lived in tents, cooked over open fires, and sent their children to scavenge in garbage dumps. These weren't vagrants or failures. They were teachers, clerks, factory workers, people who had followed every rule and still lost. The Hoovervilles made visible what the system wanted to hide, that prosperity had been an illusion built on credit, and when credit collapsed, so did the middle class. What's haunting about the Depression isn't just the suffering, it's how it echoed forward through generations. Children who lived through it carried behaviors that never made sense to their own children. They hoarded food. They refused to throw anything away. They distrusted banks even decades later. They kept cash hidden in mattresses and paid for everything outright. To their grandchildren, it looked like paranoia. To them, it was survival instinct burned into memory. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The wealthy mostly stayed wealthy. During the Depression, the rich still controlled at least a third of all national wealth. Some lost fortunes, yes, but many had assets that couldn't evaporate. Land, gold, businesses that produced necessities. Joseph Kennedy, father of a future president, made his fortune partly by buying stocks at rock-bottom prices after the crash. While millions lost everything, those with liquidity acquired assets at a fraction of their value. The Depression was not just a disaster, it was a transfer, from the many who trusted to the few who were positioned. This is why the lessons matter. Your family's Depression story, whether they survived, how they survived, or whether they were among those crushed, shaped the financial instincts passed down to you. The grandparent who insisted you save before you spend, who warned you about debt, who kept a garden even when they didn't need one, they weren't being old-fashioned, they were teaching you what the system tried to make everyone forget. Because the Depression didn't end because the system was fixed, it ended because a world war absorbed the unemployed, redirected production, and masked the structural problems that had never been solved. The banks that failed were replaced by new ones. The credit that collapsed was rebuilt. The same incentives that created the disaster were quietly restored, dressed in new regulations that promised safety but never guaranteed it. Today, household debt is higher than ever. Families borrow for homes, cars, education, and consumption on a scale the 1920s couldn't imagine. Financial institutions are larger, more interconnected, and more dependent on confidence than at any time in history. The system looks different, but the mechanics are the same. Prosperity built on promises, and promises that depend on belief. So the question you should ask isn't just whether your family survived the Great Depression. The question is, what did they learn, and have you forgotten it? Because history doesn't repeat, but it does rhyme. And the families who survive the next collapse won't be the ones who trusted most in the system. They'll be the ones who remembered what their grandparents tried to teach them, that debt is a trap, that institutions fail, that skills and community matter more than credit scores, and that real wealth isn't numbers on a screen. It's what remains when the screens go dark. The survivors of the Depression knew something we've been trained to forget. The system is not designed to protect you. It's designed to function. And when it stops functioning, the cost is not shared equally. It falls on those who trusted most. Ask your family. Look at the photographs. Read the letters, if any survive. Because somewhere in that history is a lesson that cost everything to learn and costs nothing to remember. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. Its financial system and history leaves clues. I show you where the money leads.